Yeah, I bought them. What can I say? I was feeling the same way as a lot of people with Studio Series War for Cybertron. I hate calling it Gamer Edition. The War for Cybertron Starscream. I have the same complaints that a lot of people have, but at the same time, I saw a couple of videos on this guy that were saying, like, in hand, he's actually pretty cool. And even though he definitely has his drawbacks in both modes, it's a pretty good toy. And I'm inclined to agree after messing around with this guy for a few weeks. I I have to admit, he does not really hold a candle to the Planet X version of the Fall of Cybertron / War for Cybertron Seekers, but it's also a significantly cheaper figure, so there is that. But this is actually a fun toy. Now, as you can see, you can store the weapons on him, and they look terrible, so I'm just going to take these off. But you got the giant mace and the sniper rifle thingy, and that's all you got there, and we'll look at those later. And now the jet itself. It mostly hits the right notes. There are some things that bug me about this. A lot of the same things that bug a lot of people about this. Now, I think the colors and the color distribution are good. I think the design, like the way everything comes together, is solid. That there's a lot of nice detailing on this thing. Like you can see, just molded in, there's a lot of little bits here and there that look good. I do think it's a little weird that we've got this 2-tier thing happening here. I don't know if that's accurate or not. It may be, but when I'm looking at the Planet X one, you can see there's just one of those like intakes or whatever they are on the back, and I personally think that it looks a little bit better with just one. I mean, that I'm not saying this is like a mistake, just like maybe one of these things could have been molded so that it doesn't have the vents on it. I don't know. But that's an extremely minor nitpick. Really, the things that bug me about this are, again, the same things that bug everyone else, so I may as well get that out of the way. And that is, the wings feel too small. They may actually be accurate. I don't know. They just feel too small in vehicle mode. Also, the side wings here seem completely unnecessary. I mean, in hand, this isn't as bad. In photos and in videos, I was just like, what is this? Like, this is such a waste of plastic. This didn't need to be there at all. And, you know, those parts could have been used for budgeting somewhere else or something. I don't know. But point is, like, these seem completely superfluous. In hand, they do have a little bit more of a presence. I still don't think they're necessary, strictly speaking, but they do. They stand out more than just being like this, this silly little thing that you're never going to notice. I think it's okay in hand, but I am still kind of like, these really didn't need to be here. And then, of course, there is the cockpit, which just looks too big. And as many people have noted, it's hard to see if I can angle the lights just right, but like the molding for the actual like design where it like comes in a little bit on the sides, like it's there. It's just this is one solid piece of flexy translucent plastic. And because of that, it makes the cockpit window look enormous. And I really wish that these bits along the sides here that you can just barely see, these little details along the side, had been painted, because I feel like that would go a really long way to making this not look as ridiculous. The fact that it's molded is annoying because it's not painted, but also the fact that like they painted this part, so why not continue that around the rest of it, you know? I think that really could have made a huge difference. The downside to that, though, is this is flexi plastic. Like, it is flexi, so painting it would probably have been a little bit of an issue. Also, the nose cone is that same flexi plastic, but again, like they painted this, so they could have painted this. Maybe it's because this is more prone to flexing around, so that would make the paint warp and chip and whatever. I don't know, but I I really wish that those sides were painted. And this also brings me to the Reaper label set for this guy. I was so looking forward to the Reaper label set because I really expected them to have stickers to go along the side of the cockpit here to just make that less horrible looking. And there are no stickers for it. I don't understand why. There's a sticker for like up here, so why aren't there stickers for the sides of the cockpit to fix this? So yeah, that's kind of been my annoyance with the cockpit section. It's, again, as with these bits, it's really not that bad in person. It's something that I can easily look past. In some cases, it doesn't even stand out to me that much, really, but I do think it would look better if these sides, the side details had been painted like back here and like the nose cone, or if we had stickers for them, but we don't. But another thing that kind of bugs me about this guy is right up here. There's just this gap right in here, like not an actual gap, but it's like this void of anything interesting happening right here. It's like weirdly just a flat plane of obvious robot transformation junk, and I don't know, like maybe if there was a way for this to compact in a little bit more or something. I don't know how they could have done that, but just this space here just kind of bugs me because it just seems so void of any kind of detail or anything. On the underside, you have the, robot stuff, like the hands and the arms are just right here, the legs are right here, but this is the underside. It doesn't bother me that much. It's just, yeah, those are the things that really kind of bug me about this. But I do actually really like this figure. It does some really cool stuff. It also, transforms really well. I lost what I was going to say for... oh yeah, right. One thing I actually think is really cool about the way this is designed is I really like the way that they handled the shoulders, because you've got the robot mode shoulders like right here, and if you look at it from the top, they go like there's just this cut right here so that the wings fit perfectly right around those shoulders, and I just think that's really neat. It kind of really makes it look like part of the vehicle mode that the wings are just attached. It's hard to explain, but I really like how those shoulders are just incorporated into the actual like vehicle mode shape, at least from the top. I do like that a lot. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm kind of thinking maybe if this piece were shaped differently, or had like a little bit like if this came out just a little bit more and this was like two pieces that were hinged together, this could like come out further and cover this up a little bit better. I don't know. But yeah, aside from all of that, it is Starscream colors and it does look good. It uses the Studio Series Fall of Cybertron style plastic, and I don't mean like chemically, because this plastic feels... It's hard to explain, but like the plastic on these feels pretty nice. Like the plastic on this actually feels somewhat akin to Kingdom Cyclonus. Like it feels nice and solid and hefty and dense in most places, especially with the glossy bits. But what I mean is they dulled down the colors, which isn't inherently a bad thing. It's just what they did. And, the games were, grimdark, so they weren't going to be super bright. But I do kind of wish that these colors were just a little bit brighter, a little bit more saturated, because... it'd play more into like the cartoon angle, but this is meant to be, the game, so I understand why the colors are muted. It's just the muted colors are a little bit like, I just think it would add a little bit more visual punch if the figures, not just Starscream, but that applies to Megatron and Barricade and Bumblebee, especially Bumblebee, is a very, very dull yellow that they use for him. I wish they had done a little bit more to punch up the colors, but again, I understand why they didn't. Now, since I've spent almost 10 minutes talking about the vehicle mode, let's move on to size comparisons. And my apologies for how wiggly things are. I switched back to using the ring light, and that whole setup is kind of like it's stable, but just when things are moving around, it's very wiggly. Anyway, bringing in our size comparisons. And again, as a reminder for anyone who's wondering where Artfire went. Artfire is gone and has been replaced by Toy Colors Dinobots. But there is Starscream with the kind of basic size comparisons. all these out of the way. We can focus primarily on Burnout. So there we go. Starscream is a Voyager, so he is bigger. And also Burnout does kind of compact a fair bit into her vehicle mode, so there's that. But yeah, there is how Starscream's jet mode, Tetrajet, I guess, mode compares there. Then we can bring in the Planet X version of the mold, which is noticeably bigger. Like, I'd say this is probably more akin to, like, maybe Leader, but it's kind of hard to say. Why are you off center? It's kind of hard to say for sure, but basically, this is bigger than this, but that stands to reason because Planet X works at generally a different scale. And you can also see how, like, there's a lot more painted details here. The design on this is cool. I like this mold. I like how it all works and comes together. Of course, the transformation on this is way more complicated than the transformation on this. Not to say that this is bad. It's just more complex than this is. But they both do cool stuff in their own rights. And yeah, I feel like, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that this is my preferred figure of the two. But again, this is like, I got this for like $60 on sale. It's normally closer to like 90 or 100, I think. And even then, like, that's still more expensive than the 30 that I paid for this. So, or 30-ish. So I think it's reasonable that, you know, the more expensive figure has more going for it. Anyway, final and most important size comparison. Here is Studio Series War for Cybertron Starscream with the duck tank. Now, before we transform Starscream into Starscream as a robot, if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done and you want to support the channel, I've got a Patreon, I've got a Ko-fi. Links to both are down in the description or at the end of the video. So there is that as an option. Otherwise, you could always like, comment, share, subscribe, you know, typical YouTube stuff. That helps out. Now, for the transformation, it is pretty simple. Definitely simpler than the Planet X version, but it is it does some interesting stuff. So to start, I'm just gonna go with whatever. So I don't know what the recommended order of operations is, but I've never really paid much attention to that. So first thing I like to do is open this up and fold in these little bits here, and then close that back up again. Take the tail fin rather, and bless you, Astrid. Astrid just sneezed. And take the two halves and just flip them around like that. Bless you, honey. You okay? I don't know if you can hear her, but she's sneezing. Now, bless you. Going to unpeg these bits here. These bits here peg into the backs of the legs. Just gonna untab these. They tab in very securely. There we go. So there you can see the slot and the tab there. So untab there. There we go. And now this whole assembly can hinge up like this. I'm going to rotate this up and around, and then this piece now hinges back in, and this will tab into the tab that was used to hold it into the leg. And there's this tab here, right in here. There we go. That it doesn't like tab in anywhere. What it actually does is it sits in this little groove here. So as you bring this back and hinge this in, this can kind of pass just underneath that tail fin. This comes around, and then this tabs in here, and this tab will sit right in that little groove there. And that is pretty much the backpack done. Last thing to do is just take the wings and angle them back, which is what I like to do anyway. Now for finishing off the legs, you want to take this half assembly actually disconnects from the knee and thigh, and we'll double hinge up. But you don't want to bring it in all the way, and I'll explain why in a minute. But bring that up, and now this panel can untab from the thigh. There's like a little tab here, a little slot there, so untap that and bring that down. Now you want to bend the knee and bring it in the rest of the way, because you want this tab to be able to clear the knee. So that comes in like that, and then this can close up, and now this can come down. And this actually, like, it's so weird. This tabs into the inside of the knee, and I don't understand why. I really don't even understand why this tab is here. Like, I guess it keeps the knee from, like, you could argue it sits in here, but, like, it's not really necessary to lock this in place, I don't think. And, like, it's not like the knee can bend when it's in this position anyway, because this flap is holding this whole, like, because this is the knee right here, this blue piece. So, like, this is keeping it from bending. So I don't understand why that tab is there, other than it just notches into here. But, like, even then, that seems kind of unnecessary. So yeah, I don't really like that you have to do that, and it, like, locks the leg, the knee in this straight position, or, like, you could still use it. It's not quite like Megatron, where you're just kind of, you have to shave things down to get the legs to work, but this is just weird. I don't really understand why they did that. One thing I've been thinking of doing is, you could see it from here. There's, like, if we pull this back, it kind of sits in this spot. Like, it's really difficult to show, but basically the tab kind of goes in here, and I really don't see why that's necessary, so I'm kind of wondering if I went in, like, cut out that little piece of, that, like, little wall of the tab section, if that would allow it to more freely move. But, oh well, that is what they decided to do, for reasons. Anyway, other leg, untap this, bring the knee down, bring this in the rest of the way, and then down. There we go. Now you can take the side fins, and those just fold back along the leg, and they actually kind of click in too, which is kind of nice because they sit really nice and they're not going to, like, flop out. But again, like, those little winglets just don't seem to have much of a reason to exist. And finally, you can flip out the toes, and that is the legs all done. So there is the lower body, all good to go. Now for the upper body, you want to take the arms, and they kind of tab in together, and they also tab into to the other side of this piece here. So what I tend to do is grab one side and kind of pull out at an angle to kind of untab the two arms from each other and get out around that little tab section, because like, basically what's happening is this and this tab together, obviously, but beyond that, there's this little notch on the inside of the forearm that actually goes over that little bit of red tab right there, and that kind of holds the arms in place. You can kind of see it better on this side, how it's nestled in there, and that's why I kind of want to pull it out like that. Or I guess you can't see it from the side, but, like, yeah, it's that little tab that's tapped into that. Not super strongly, it's more of like a guide, but it just seems like there's an unnecessary amount of locking tabs on this figure. Anyway, now we can take the arm assembly and double hinge it out. And double hinge it out. And it will, like, it doesn't really lock into place, but, like, it kind of settles in pretty nicely. Then we can take this piece, and this whole thing will disconnect. But these little pieces here actually tab into this bigger red piece here, so you kind of want to untab those first. And they do fit in rather securely, as you can see. Like, they don't really want to come out, so I kind of end up having to get, like, a nail in there and just kind of pop them up. It's not the worst thing, but, like, they tab in a little too securely for my taste, but there you can see where they're tapped in. It's a little little tabs that just kind of sit in there, but like the angles involved make them a little bit tricky to disconnect. Anyway, as you bring this down, there are these tabs on these gray pieces that will now tab into these little slots on either side of the little mushroom. Keep bumping the thing. They tab in right here, these little spots next to this mushroom peg thing. So you bring that down, and those will settle in there, and that keeps these shoulder assemblies from collapsing, which is really nicely done. And also, of course, something I probably should have done sooner. I've got to take care of the head. So I want to pop open cockpit, and the nose will rotate down with it. Now the head comes out on this platform. I'm just kind of pushing out from the underside. This comes out like so. And you kind of want to be careful because of the angles here. As you saw, this can get stuck. Like, essentially, if the head is like this and you try to bring it up, it'll get caught. So you want the head to be kind of straight to bring it around. Just from, like, it's normally like this when it goes in there, but as you pull it out, it's probably going to move forward. So you want to be mindful of that. And rotate the head around 180 degrees. Bring this back a little bit more. And now the tip of the nose will fold in independently of the cockpit section. And then this comes down, and these little bits here on either side will tab into these gray bits on either side of the now folded in nose cone. Bring those in, tab those in. Now this plank flips back and the head hinges forward, and that will settle in there. Close up the cockpit, and then these little bits here just flare out like so. And lastly, the backpack comes up, and there are these little tabs on either side of the armature that tab into the back there. That holds all that together, and there we have Studio Series War for Cybertron Starscream in robot mode. And it's a pretty interesting transformation. It does a lot of pretty cool things, and I actually do like this figure a lot. Again, he's still got some things that I'm not a fan of. Not the least of which is that cockpit and the chest, again, being like just too... It looks too big. But again, when you look at the detailing that's in there, which is difficult to show, but like the molded detailing that's in there, if that stuff were painted, it would make the window look smaller, and it would make that practically a non-issue, which is why it's so irritating that they didn't paint that along with, you know, this and the nose tip, and yeah. But, you know, he does, aside from the cockpit thing, he actually does look pretty cool. Again, we come back to the muted colors thing that I was talking about, where I kind of wish that they had decided to go with something a little bit more punchy, but again, it's the yes, hi Astrid. It's the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, you know, the video game stuff, so they're muted because grimdark and all that, but it still looks good. The proportions are nice. He looks a little bit squat. But I'm just going by what I'm seeing from the Planet X figure, not like actual game art. Hi, Astrid. Astrid, please. Astrid, come on. Why? Astrid, get off of the thing. Come on. It's just like messing up my setup. Ugh. Anyway. So, yeah, he does look good. There's not necessarily much in the way of new stuff here. A lot of this stuff was visible in the jet mode or vehicle mode, except it was on the underside. But it still looks, you know, pretty good. He could do with more paint. And some of what is painted here is very strange to me. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's kind of like, So, I mean, obviously the Reaper label set would address some of that, but like the gray in the shoulders in particular is extremely plain because it's just this unpainted gray plastic. And you do get some color breakup, which I do like in the arms because you go from the light gray to the dark dark blue, and then there's also the silver painted in the forearms, which is great. But just a little bit of like maybe some red or something on those shoulders. But again, I think the Reaper label set actually adds stickers, like has stickers that add red to those shoulders, so that's good. But could do with detailing in the cockpit, as I said. Thank you, Astrid. Detailing the cockpit. The arm, the legs, actually, I've got no problem with the legs in terms of like detailing. I like that they added the bit of like metallic red in the shins. Astrid. Yes, it's a slightly different setup, honey. Hi. Do you mind? But the thing that kind of is to me with the feet in particular is, like, I get it. The feet are a solid blue. Like, this is solid blue plastic. I understand that. So, of course, they wanted to paint this so that the toes stood out and it wasn't just like a blue hoof, basically. I get that. But it's weird that they painted it silver. Like, it's this... I don't know, it's just, it doesn't match the... it doesn't match this at all, and it just stands out a lot to me. Which, again, I understand they wanted it to kind of look more like the leg was blending in with the foot and all that, but I feel like this would have been fine if they left it blue and maybe use that paint elsewhere, like in the arms or on the cockpit, but whatever. Yeah, he does look good. Also, it's interesting to me how there's this detail on the back here, this blue paint here, right in here, that's visible on the back. What's the reason why that's interesting to me is this is covered up by the tail fin mostly when it's in vehicle mode, which means that they painted that more for the benefit of the robot mode, but it's on his back, which is strange. I don't hate it, it's just strange. And also, something that I only really am just now noticing, the wings are, like, this is the top of the wings in vehicle mode, and the Decepticon logos are oriented to, go with that. So, like, when the jet is facing down, you see the Decepticon logos. But on the underside, they're flipped the other way around because this is the part that's facing forward in robot mode. So I think that's cool how they basically solved the classic Starscream conundrum of having the Decepticon logos that are upside down in one mode or the other. Now it's like it's right side up on both, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, cool design. Again, typical Seeker. Like I did always appreciate how this design, the Fall of Cybertron / War for Cybertron design, still managed to capture the classic Seeker design while being different, because you got the cockpit chest, and then you've also got the little, like, behind the head intake scoop things, and, like, the wings on the back. It's cool how they managed to do that, and that's on High Moon Studios for doing that design, not Hasbro, but it's cool. Now the head is it's that Seeker head. It's, pretty much the same overall design as the Planet X version, just smaller because figure's smaller. But it looks good. The sculpting is really nice. I like the kind of darker gunmetal-y paint for the face with the red eyes. It looks solid. I don't mind the blue for the head. I mean, I feel like black would be appropriate, but I think, the dark blue works really well. And it's Starscream. It probably would have benefited from having like a smirk rather than a scowl, but maybe they'll do what they did with like Thundercracker and Skywarp, where we get those eventually, and like one of them has the kind of head that you actually want, and so you swap them. I don't know. But the molding is nice. It's got that like kind of classic Seeker design, but is also a little bit more boxy for the overall like head and helmet, and it looks good. Now for the articulation, the head is on a ball joint, but you're not going to get any side to side, but you can look up a fair bit, and you of course get the rotation. You can't really look down, but because of the little plank that the head sits on, you can actually leverage it up a bit, and that allows you to kind of look down, which I actually think that's really cool, because like you can leave it up like that and it doesn't really impact the look of this. It actually, in my mind, kind of looks better because now it kind of follows this angle that like both of these shoulder bits and the just little struts here are giving you. It just adds a little bit more dimensionality to the top of the chest, and it now allows him to look down, and even it allows him to look up more because now this is pushed a little bit further forward from the backpack. So you can totally do that, and like that's great. So yeah, I highly recommend if you get this guy, pull that plank up just a little bit. Don't push it down all the way. But you got that. The shoulders can do the full 360, but the wings get in the way because that's just, you know, how it goes. And go out. This does, as you saw, it kind of gets in the way, but you can push that in. So the arms can go out to almost 90. You get a bicep rotation. You get a double jointed elbow, which is because of the transformation, because it has to go in like that, but it gives you well past, it's actually a little bit past 180 degrees. It curls in more, which is cool. It does make the elbow section of the arm a little bit thin, but I think it's fine. You also get wrist rotation, which is very cool. And let's get this out of the way. You get a waist rotation as well, and it actually, like, it doesn't go all the way around because of the geometry and stuff clashing into, like, bits crashing into each other, but like that's a pretty decent amount of waist rotation. So I'm not really going to complain about that. The hips, gonna have to zoom out here a little bit. The hips can go forward to a little bit past 90 and back pretty much to 90 and go out to 90. You get a thigh swivel, which can't go in too far, but it does go in and can go out to basically 90. The knees, as I mentioned, are a little bit annoying because of how that bit tabs into the inside, but if you pull it past that tab, it doesn't like look awkwardly bent, so you could kind of work around it that way. But then with it untabbed, you get, I want to say, yeah, that's more than 90. So more than 90 on the knee. And then the feet, you can move the toe in if you want, but I don't see why you would. Can't really go out. But you do get ankle tilt that can go pretty decently, and I like how they sculpted this so that it goes inside a little bit. So like if you angled the ankle, it's still like it doesn't look completely broken up until you go way out there. That's a nice little detail. I like when figures do that, when they can figure out a way to make that work. So yeah, he's pretty poseable, pretty expressive. He's a fun little Starscream. I actually am glad I got him, even though I had my reservations about this mostly. And like in robot mode, I feel like the wings, this being this size, make a little bit more sense, but I still think that it would have been okay to make the wings a bit bigger. It's like they look fine here in robot mode, but I think if they were a little bit bigger, it wouldn't really detract from the robot mode at all, and it would make the vehicle mode look better. So who knows, maybe fingers crossed, maybe DNA in the future will do like an upgrade kit for this guy that includes like a new cockpit window and like bigger wings. I don't know. But for the accessories, as we saw before, he comes with a couple of them. There's the sniper rifle thing, which looks fine. It's decently molded. It's a solid piece of gray plastic. It looks fine. I do appreciate that this one at least can be held, unlike the other Studio Series or for Cybertron figures, so he can actually hold it. But he also does the thing. You can pop off the forearm and then pop on the gun, and there you go. And this, I'm not really feeling this. I think for this in particular, it's a combination of that arm looks incredibly skinny, and then the gun is also really skinny, so it just makes things look really kind of thin and weedy. And also, I don't really know that there's a place to store the arm when you've done this. Maybe there is, and I just didn't see it or haven't figured it out. I guess if you wanted to, you could have that on there, hide it back there somehow. That, I guess, doesn't look terrible from the front, but it does look a little bit weird. Yeah, I'm not a fan, so we're just gonna put this back in here. Though I do like that this setup, it sits in there a lot more securely. Like, it does come off when you want it to, but I haven't had it like you know, fall off on me like some of the other figures. But what I tend to do with the sniper rifle is I just plug it into the back here for storage because I don't really like it. But there's that. And he also comes with the mace. And it looks good. It's appropriately big and clunky. This is actually kind of heavy, which I appreciate. And I like the metallic purple that they used for the design. It is a cool looking design. I like how this actually has some gaps in it. So it looks like it's this big chunk of metal being held in place by like 4 spiked forks, basically. It's a neat design. It unplugs for some reason. And when you look in there, you can actually see that this is made up of that same semi-translucent yellow plastic that the cockpit is, which is strange, but that's what it's made out of. Also, when plugging it back in, you can see there's a little notch there, and there's a little like track at the top there. So you want to make sure you line that up when you put it back together. Otherwise, you might have problems. But that is the mace. It looks good, and it does the same thing that Megatron's. I think he also had like a club or a mace. It's the same thing that his weapon does, where he holds it from down here. So he can hold it, but it looks silly because he's holding it so far down. I wish there was a way for him to hold it like more here, where it would look a little bit more natural. It doesn't look as bad with this as it does with Megatron's weapon, I think, because Megatron's club thing is longer. But it's still, I just wish that that was done a little bit differently. Oh, almost forgot to do this, but let's check for blast effect compatibility. So on the sniper rifle, yep, that is nicely solid there. On this, not really, but the end of it, maybe? Nope, the end of it is also not. I think that's probably 3mm, so figures with 3mm hands can hold it. Hang on. I did not think about testing this, so let's grab a core class figure off the shelf and check to see if that's actually true. As I'm thinking about it, it's probably not, because I think the blast effects are designed to work with that. So let's see. Yeah, no, that's not going in there. Okay. Also, there he is with the core class Shockwave, if you were curious. So yeah, that's it for that. You can also store the mace on the back. Generally speaking, I think what you want to do is have, because this little peg section here is off center, you kind of want to have that facing in, because that helps it get around the folded in or folded out tail fins. Come on, I know you can plug in there. Yeah, so it can store like that. But in general, I like to just pop the sniper rifle on the back and give him a club, because I just think that looks cooler. So, yeah, there he is. There's my blast effects, and it doesn't have any other blast effect ports or anything like that on him, so away that goes. So, that is it for robot mode and the accessories and the articulation and all that. So let's move on to the last bit here with size comparisons. So Dinobot and Burnout, Nova Prime, and Samus, and what the heck, Shockwave back in there just because. So there is Starscream with the regular size comparisons, and he is noticeably shorter than Dinobot, who is also a Voyager. That said, I feel like it's a difficult distinction to make, because like I do feel like the Dinobot mold has more going on. Like it's just got more parts, more engineering. It's, you know, a little bit more involved. So on that front, I kind of feel like, yeah, maybe it's a little bit that he's so much smaller than him, despite him being, I feel at least, simpler. But I also haven't bothered to count the number of parts or anything like that. But now that's how that measures up. It doesn't really bother me too much. But yeah, this Voyager is only slightly above the shoulder line of the other Voyager. But then there's the other comparison to make. Bring in Planet X's Fatum or Fatum or whatever. And again, you can kind of see that, like, yeah, I feel like there's no real contest here. If for no other reason than this guy's knees don't weirdly lock in, and also the cockpit is way thinner and the wings are bigger. But I will say he can sweep his wings back. He cannot, which is definitely one advantage for Studio Series Starscream. But yeah, I mean, they both hit the same general notes. I think, again, I do think the Planet X mold looks better, but the Planet X mold also has more parts, more paint, bigger transformations, way more involved. It's an unlicensed third-party figure that costs like twice, if not 3 times as much as the official one, so perhaps not the most fair comparison to make in terms of quality, and not even quality, but like, you know, aesthetics and stuff. But that is how they look together. That said, I don't mind having both, because I don't do, like, you know, completion style collections. So like, I don't care about having all of the Planet X Seekers, and I don't care about having all of the official Seekers. So it's fine. This guy can be Thundercracker. He can be Starscream. And then if we get another one somewhere down the line, I can have a Skywarp that's like a completely different Fall of Cybertron, War for Cybertron thing from like someone else. Anyway, let's finish this train wreck up. Here he is with the duck tank. And that does it for Studio Series War for Cybertron Starscream. And, you know, again, I'm going to echo what a lot of people have been saying. I had my doubts about this guy and my reservations. He's far from being perfect, but I actually think he's pretty cool. You know, looking past those visual issues that were bothering me, like the cockpit size, the wings size, and then the little like unnecessary back wings, he's actually pretty cool. And I feel like any of those, like even the side wings, you can kind of ignore. It's whatever. But like in hand, none of that stuff is as bad as the photos and videos made it out to be. I do definitely think that it would be better if the wings were a bit bigger. I definitely think it would be better if the rest of the cockpit was painted so that it looked smaller. Because again, as I said, like, if they had just painted the edges, it would make the orange section appear smaller, which would absolutely fix. I don't like using that term, but it would address the issue. It would make a big difference, and that really does bum me out. But it is what it is. I may try painting it myself in the future. I don't know. I really don't know how well that plastic would take acrylic paint, because I started using acrylics now, and yeah, I don't know. I was really hoping we'd get stickers, but as I said, we didn't. But again, like, it's not that bad. It's not great. It would have absolutely been better if it wasn't like this, but it's not that bad. And I feel like unless you absolutely despise the cockpit design, I feel like it might be worth at least trying to mess around with this figure if you know someone who has them or something like that, just to get a feel for it yourself. Because if you can look past those weird design shortcomings, I think you might actually really like it, because he is pretty darn cool. But hey, maybe we'll get a Generation Select Skywarp and or Thundercracker or Red Wing, or heck, maybe Slipstream. I would absolutely love it if they did like a Generation Select Slipstream using this mold. I've never owned a Slipstream figure before, so I would love to have. I would absolutely trade this guy in for a Slipstream if they made one. But regardless, he is actually pretty good. So that has been my look at this guy. I've said so much nonsense about this, so I'm just going to stop. So what do you all think of Studio Series War for Cybertron Starscream, or other, like, Planet X version or other versions of this this design that we've gotten? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and until my delivery of stuff comes in, I've got a big bad toy store pile on the way. Until that gets here, we're back on stuff I've had for a while, so nothing. Next video is not going to be a brand new figure, but it's fine, right? I've never been timely with this stuff.